right, let's do Shodi. Welcome everybody to the Verdigris Table. I am Ryan Doyle, and I am happy to have with me here today, doing what I believe is referred to as a princess wave, is Jake from Wisdom Check. What's up, Jake? How you doing today, man?
Good. I'm doing really well, actually. I've been surprised that there's been so much ability to connect with people since Kraken Week.
Mm,
People are just like, "Oh yeah, I saw you there. Cool, let's do a thing."
yes, it is. So if you don't know what Kraken Week is, go watch that playlist of, I believe, hundreds of videos. Ginny D and Antonio from Pointy Hat decided that we needed a Shark Week equivalent of a made-up holiday, and it took on a life of its own. It's a bunch of awesome creative nerds out there, and we pulled our resources and made some awesome stuff. But it also, the best part for me was the community building. Is that your experience as well?
Actually, it wasn't okay. I guess like selfishly, I would say that it was nice to be able to say to so many people at once, "Hey, I'm here. Can we be friends?" But really, what felt the coolest to me is that somebody said, "Hey, I want everybody who's willing to do a TTRPG thing and celebrate Krakens to be here." It wasn't specifically D&D, wasn't specifically Pathfinder, it wasn't on their schedule. It was just, "Hey, you want to do Krakens? Come here." That was
Yeah.
cool. Really,
Yes.
really neat. That felt very welcoming and sort of, I don't know, warmed my heart. It felt like a real introduction to the D&D tubers, even though I already know some of you guys.
Yeah, I think things have blown wide open because a lot of nasty shit happened. You have your videos on the OGL. So if anybody wants to, revisit all that, go hop over to Wisdom Check. We don't need to relive all that trauma here, but it's a golden age. There's so many amazing games out there. I think everybody who was like in their little 5e silo has opened up to the galaxy of old games and new games. There's so much goodness out there, and I think also a lot of players. I think a lot of dungeon masters were ready to branch out, but players were kind of, I know this. It took me forever to figure this out. I don't want to change.
Well, that's the way it
Um,
seems to always work. The DM or GM leads the charge. They're the ones that say, "Hey, we're gonna do this week," and the players are just like, "Whatever. I'm drinking beer. I have pizza. Just do it."
yes. And in my personal experience with that, I put it to my players democratically, like we can learn five rules light systems, right? Like, Shadow Dark was on the menu. There's a bunch of like one pagers, or we can transition to Pathfinder Second Edition, which I know is your bread and butter, also known as PF2, PF2E, or PF2.
Yeah.
Say it for me. Introduce
Yeah.
the folks to what I
It's
think everyone should be calling it.
sort of like if you're sneezing and you're trying to pronounce PF2, two.
It's perfect. I see. What do you got? A GM screen there?
Yeah, this is the GM screen that I just got given by Paizo. So what I'm trying to show you is not that page. I'm trying to point out how complicated this shit is. Okay, it's this page. So this page is all just conditions that you have to know in order to run the game.
Mm,
That's why
mm,
this is important, but nobody's gonna have all this memorized. So
correct.
yeah, Pathfinder 2 is rules intense.
Pathfinder 2 is rules intense, which is I loved. I love a good crunchy game. Hey, there he is. I love a good crunchy game. There's an answer to everything. There's an answer to everything, and you just have to be willing to go find it. And you can absolutely always just like make some shit up. But like, oh, it's a perfectly balanced machine, and all of these things are interacting in a very complex, beautiful dance. So like it's worth taking, in my experience, a couple minutes. Go find the page number. Go find what this tag means. Uh,
I agree, and altogether it makes it easier for the GM. Did you play 3.5?
in passing, a couple. Yeah, I'm a
Okay.
baby. I've only been playing for like a decade.
All right, well, you know how 3.5 would have this plus two circumstance bonus, this plus two bonus, plus two, plus two, plus two, plus two. And it got so that none of the plus twos mattered unless you stack them up.
hmm
And in Pathfinder, even a plus one matters at any level, which is
Yes.
freaking weird. I don't even know how they handled that. But I'm actually going to be talking with the dude who was a key factor in the mathematics that is the structure that's so stable in Pathfinder 2, Mark Seifter.
Hmm.
He and I have a date later today to just like sort of figure out how we can communicate together, and then we're gonna make a collab.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm talking to him next week, I think, and he knows what he's doing. Like because he
Yeah.
did it. A lot of us are talking about stuff. He's talking about stuff that he built. Yeah, and it again, it sings. If you haven't experienced Pathfinder Second Edition, and you have strong feelings about how CR in fifth edition doesn't quite work, the encounter building isn't quite tight. Uh, they solved all of those problems and problems you didn't even know you had fixed yourself in some homebrew scheme. It's a beautiful machine. It's so good.
I think it depends on what kind of person you are as well. Like for me, I'm really good at memorization and recitation. I have really good reading comprehension. So if you are able to study something and retain it, that is a good skill to have getting into Pathfinder 2. If instead you're actually quite good at coming up with modifications to the rules on the fly that works for you and your group and you can write it down and remember it, great, do that instead. I can't. I've tried. I suck at it.
Mm, mm. Yeah, a lot of my uh, I'm more comfortable doing temporary changes. Like, this is how we're gonna do it now. Oh, that was fun. Okay, that's the way until I change my mind now.
Yeah.
All right, let's show us that big beautiful D20 you were showing me before, and we're gonna play some D20 questions here. It's a
Oh,
bit
hold on a second. Let me shake it up because it's filled with liquid.
nice.
See how it
Love the,
turns?
I love the sparkly core. Oh, I like the 20 being circled on there. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, it's like two crescents. But I just love that all right, when you roll it, I love that it keeps its momentum and it keeps turning for a while.
Mm, that's good
It's
stuff.
it's a combination of water and glycerin, but I don't remember what the little threads are. It doesn't matter. It's pretty.
I don't know how they make it. I just know it makes the sound it makes when I roll. All right, give me a roll here. Let's see what we get. There's no good or bad here. Natural one isn't gotcha, but there's a trajectory between the questions. There's a tonal shift as we move up.
I watched two of your videos, actually only one in full, but the other one I watched
I'm
in part.
offended. No, they've grown quite long now.
Well, right. It's an hour and 10 minutes while I'm working out, totally perfect. While I'm trying to edit a video, hard to do.
Oh God, yes.
But I think that I know not everybody would be this way because stage fright or whatever, maybe just don't want to share too much, but it would be really fun
Mhm.
if I got a question that is like something that's totally unrelated and unexpected, um, like what is the headspace you get into when you're role playing an NPC, or um, like what's your favorite food to make and why? Like something that is really like an essay question.
They are I strive for this like simplicity that grows natural one. I will say I mean you are welcome to fudge. There's no real function to fudging because you don't know what's on these cards. But you're welcome to homebrew, I guess. If you want to tell me the headspace you get into to portray an NPC or your favorite snacks, I'm here for it. Let's go. I'll put this one on hold if you want. Just tell me the snacks first.
Oh,
What's your go-to table food?
my go-to is it's a little bit weird, but I have a canister of salt near me at all times,
Okay.
and I sprinkle that on dark chocolate or nuts, and I love those two things.
Oh man. Yes, if you're not to go too down the culinary rabbit hole, you're missing salt. I don't know what you're doing. Just a little more salt. I make like a salty chocolate chip cookie. Boom. And most people don't know why they're so good. It's also only brown sugar. It's people have different preferences for texture, but all brown sugar and like more salt than they say you should use. And oh, it's so good. Give
The
me like
brown
a
sugar makes
salted
it crinkle up
caramel.
more, but it's more tasty. It's more candied.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have salt next to you because you're ready to eat at all times, or is there like some sort of
Oh, I'm ready to
arcane
eat at all
purpose?
times.
Okay, you're not like protecting yourself from the Fae or anything, or
No, I mean you might think that from my background,
yeah, I'm ready for anything.
but no, I always have to have salt on me because I wish I knew why exactly it affected me. Like I used to believe, oh, pink salt's magical. It does amazing things that science sort of understands, but I don't know. I like if I have brain fog or I'm not thinking clearly because I'm tired in the evening, or even if I'm just worn out and sore and I have salt, I wake up, I think more clearly. It helps my brain. I don't get it. Maybe it's just because I'm in Arizona and I sweat my ass off and I don't have enough salt in my body, but I tend to always need salt, so it's there.
That's yeah, that's interesting to me. There's a lot, all of the stuff that is like folkloric and woo woo from 400 years ago that we've now figured out like why it works. So all that like folkloric woo woo stuff that's going on right now, like we're not the first people to have it all figured out. There's unknown unknowns out there right now, and maybe Salt's doing some stuff. I do think the electrolyte theory is a pretty strong one in Arizona, especially this summer. And I
I
don't know.
think that that's why Wiccans and other pagans, other occult members in general, tend to say magic is just undiscovered science.
Hmm. And yeah, I mean, okay, magical thinking is like a dismissive thing. We try to like account for and cancel out the placebo effect, but like give me if it's working, give me placebo. There's fewer side effects. Like if I can think my way out of this thing, I have the opposite. Usually I'm thinking my way into problems, not out of problems.
Well,
But
then you have the power of both.
yeah, yeah, mind over matters is a very powerful and understudied uh at least in our current culture society.
Yeah, and Western
Um,
medicine kind of blocks that.
yeah,
We have to rely on medications.
yeah, and you don't have to pick and choose either. I think there's a lot of. I mean, we're talking about things on the internet, so everyone's going to choose a side. But why not? Especially when it comes down to health. Like I don't know, throw spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks. Try it
Yeah.
all. All right, number one. What aspect of the game are you currently focused on? Which is kind of a polite way to ask the question, what aspect of the game do you have the most room to improve?
Oh. Oh. Okay. You're not talking as a content creator, but as a DM-ish person, right?
I will take both answers. I mean, I'm also open to player facing, but I'll take all three, man. I got time and the curiosity.
Curiosity. That's an important trait to have. Okay, so as a DM, you can probably see this exhibit on live stream. The things that I have to work on more, I think that actually the one primary thing that I need to be more practiced at and remember is that if I want to storytell, modify rules, make up on the spot bullshit, that I should do that because that's my natural inclination. And the people that are watching, they may or may not enjoy it. The people that are playing at the table, they may or may not enjoy it, but I'm not going to know unless I try.
Hmm.
And I think that most of the players at my table kind of just like me enough to be willing to let me do random bullshit.
As opposed to like running what you've prepped or running what's in the book. You're working off of.
I mean, rules versus improv.
Oh, okay. So like okay, I was thinking story side, but on the rules side of things, like the like rule of cool
Right. I don't
occasionally.
do much of that. I do that in backstory and character creation, but
Hmm.
when I'm running the game, it doesn't occur to me. And that's partly because of stage fright and fear of judgment,
Mm.
which is not ultimately helping anyone. You're not giving another person the chance to like who you are if you don't show them who you are.
God, yeah. I mean, guilty as charged. I mean, I try to, I'm myself, this is what you see is what you get. I mean, I'm slightly more caffeinated when I'm on a camera. But like, God, yeah, just like open up. We're so fucking afraid of like somebody seeing who we truly are, but they already do, so you might as well have fun.
Right.
You
We're
know?
not as hidden as we think. And so that's as a DM, as a creator, I want to get all right. I seem to be pretty fast now at pulling archetypes out of the book or describing ancestries or classes. Are you familiar with what archetypes or ancestries are?
Say that last part again.
I'll just say what they are for people that are not used to the Pathfinder lingo. So,
Okay, yeah.
um, you have classes in Pathfinder like you have classes in D&D. And the races are called ancestries, and then there are versatile heritages. So each ancestry has subdivided heritages of that
Mhm.
ancestry, and separate from that, there are completely separate versatile heritages that you can take, like vampire. It's called a Dhampir, or a fire
Poppins,
elemental, or earth elemental. What?
Poppins, Poppets.
Yeah, puppets.
The little doll dudes, and like, oh, but there's if, again, even if you don't want a crunchy system, Galarian, right? Like the flavor of Pathfinder. Everybody talks about the rules and the crunch, but like, woo, there's some awesome stuff you can lift and insert into whatever you're doing. The world
Yes,
building, beautiful.
I agree. And the world building is expansive. It's not just, I'm focusing on this continent, maybe not that continent, just the coast, maybe not that coast, just that town. It's worldwide.
Mm,
They hire writers to do the entire world.
mm.
So there's richness wherever you look in the Pathfinder Galarian world. Oh, anyway, the archetypes are basically prestige classes or secondary classes, if you want to think of it that way, that you add on to your main class. And in each player-facing book they come out with, there's at least a couple of archetypes. So, like the last one they came out with, Hell of the Wild, was all about nature and animals, and they have were creatures. So you can play were crocodiles or were whatever. And I've gotten pretty good at explaining those and giving my perception on them. But when I'm coming up with something from scratch, a build that has a rich story, not like Ursula that I just finished, but like Playmate, my slightly demented poppet with attachment issues, I have to take a long time to create the backstory, create the character sheet, and then create the script. The shooting is really fast, but then the editing is also two stages. It's editing the video and creating a blog so people can use the character build process. All of that takes forever. So I want to get faster at that as a creator.
People don't realize oh, you watched a 7 minute video that took 7 minutes to create. No, that took 3 days, guys. Like it's a lot back here. It's a
Yeah,
lot. If you haven't tried it,
don't.
especially doing what you're doing. I mean, I implied it, but we started having too good of a time. Go check out Wisdom Check, links down below. You do expansive, like deep dives into a lot of things, but like character builds and like step by step. It's clear that there's a lot of prep that has gone into the video. You don't just hit the ground running. You are building a character concept. And I really did enjoy Ursula. That's a cool thing that like I don't know if you couldn't have pulled off in 5e the same way at all. If a lot of folks, everybody on YouTube, most of them are coming from a 5e background. Um, the intimidating at first and most liberating part, and I think you capture this really well, is you can drill down and customize so much. There's a lot of decision making fatigue because a lot of people are like, I'm gonna make this character from 1 to 20, and like that's a little more advanced, and you might never reach level 20. Like make your decisions as they come up. And it's a beautiful system. In fact, you did uh I think the premise was it was a class breakdown or like a walkthrough of the Pathfinder 2e classes, but it was secretly a takedown of how non-versatile the 5e classes are to start, at least to start.
Mhm.
um yeah, and it really shows like, okay, this is if you bring a warlock in fifth edition to my table, I have a pretty good idea of what it's doing. Um there's so many beautiful customizable aspects in a Pathfinder 2e character.
Well,
Um,
there are in certain classes in 5e as well. It's just not widespread enough.
yeah, there's orders of magnitude more. But I'm curious now. What is the you want to do it faster? Because I think you're good at it. I mean, I've watched you. You are good at it. Breaking that down and explaining it. That's not what you're saying, right? That you want to be better at that part, or you want to be more efficient at video creation.
Specifically, the builds, I want to be faster at okay, I suck at multitasking. And
Ah,
it really comes up when I'm trying to edit a video and create a blog and put links in the blog that are pictures that I put in the video. That's very difficult for me to manage, so I have to do them one at a time.
mhm.
And the blog itself is pretty long, and the blog is basically the script that I already read on camera, modified slightly so it's easier to read. And so the conversion, unplugging my brain from the script or the video, and then plugging it into the blog, how is all this going to come across visually? I don't know if it's a multitasking issue, and I don't know if it's just that it takes a long time to write all that crap again. But some stage along the way, I'm just not all that fast. It's not that I don't understand it, it's that it's just extra steps. Like, can I just cut out some of this shit?
Yeah, yeah, and that's why people pay other people. I don't, but like, like there's a lot of folks out there with editors, and I'm like, oh, how do I get me one of those? Oh, money? Okay, yeah, I guess I'll do it myself. But woo, one day, baby, when this whole thing takes off, someone else can do it better and faster than me. Please, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Storm's dad, my girlfriend's dad, is like, you know what you should do? You should hire somebody to take off some of that workload. What part? How? Do they know what the video should look like in the end? Can they create the build backstory? None of this can be handed off to somebody else.
Mm, yeah. I'm with you on that. Yeah, we went to the we went to the YouTube side, and that resonates. I wish I was making more faster, better, harder, stronger. Insert Daft Punk song here.
I just
I-
thought that too when you said it harder, fast. I'm like, work it, do it,
it just
build
comes
it.
out. There'll always there's always some song playing in the back of my head. Sometimes it sneaks out my mouth. Um, please roll that big old D20 again, and let's pull another card here.
I'm gonna have to move a cat butt. Come here. There you go. I love you. Four.
Oh,
You can lay
all
down,
right.
just not on the whole mat. Lay down.
Actually, this ties in pretty nicely. What motivated you to start making videos? What's the big idea to your approach? I mean, you've explored it a little bit already, but
Life conditions left me unable to work most jobs.
oh, interesting.
So I was my brain was working fine and I could talk and I decided, I don't know, let's try writing a novel. So I started writing. And then I got a couple short stories out and I realized the novel was going to take forever and I needed money before that. And then I thought, how else can I take this fantasy brain of mine that I've had since childhood and apply it in a different way to reach more people?
Hmm.
And then Storm and I talked about it a bit, and I had a character, an NPC from my longest running campaign that I loved embodying. His name was Kesdrix. It was sort of stolen from a Magic the Gathering card. I just offhand, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna name this random wizard that's cranky in this town. I just recently looked through my magic cards. I'll name him that because it seems like a weird, strange, otherworldly name. And over time, years ago, I developed a pretty detailed personality for this character. So we put him on camera and we started talking to an audience that could understand in-world game talk from an in-world character. So we had the backdrop and all the animations and stuff. And I even started inserting my short stories into it, read by Kesdrix. And I got this sense of satisfaction of being able to share my inner fantasy world with other people.
Hmm.
And then it was a lot of work physically. It doesn't really show in the end, but putting on the costume and makeup and putting in contacts, it took hours. So we needed to switch to something else that was still fantasy based. So we tried D&D and uh creating downloadable content for D&D. So I made subclasses and spells. I have a whole suite of blood magic spells still on DM's Guild. 13 spells, one for every level and then some. And I started going with things that I naturally tended towards. So there's a lot of like weird, gross body horror in those original creations. Like a sword that becomes a chainsaw that starts, uh, well, it's gross. Um, and then that also wasn't working. So we started trying to get smarter about it and realized that if creating isn't something that's going to work, then we need to do presenting like other D&D tubers were doing. But the D&D market was so saturated, we thought, well, let's try something else that's still the same function. So YouTube recognizes this is breaking down a class. This is talking about gameplay, but do it for Pathfinder because there were only like two Pathfinder tubers at that point. So that's how we migrated from there to here.
Yeah, that's an interesting journey. I it is really nice how fulfilling these creative pursuits could can be, and often are, especially when you start to find your tribe, your audience, and somebody shared, I forget who shared it, but someone shared like it was a TikTok or something just recently of like your video touched 100 people. Like if you were talking in a room full of 100 people, you'd be nervous. Like this is what 1,000 people looks like, which is like rookie numbers, right? Like if I hit 1,000, I'm happy, but like by the YouTube standards, like 1,000 people is nothing. But like if you were in a on stage in front of 1,000 people, you'd be sweating, you know.
Yeah,
So it is good to like drill down and appreciate that, and it's deeply fulfilling, and that's good because the money's tough.
yeah,
It's if, it's when the OGL spiciness was happening, people were like, "Oh, he's just saying that because he's getting a ton of money from Wizards of the like they didn't pay me shit." And also, there's not. You think we're if you want to get on YouTube to be rich and famous or famous, talk about something other than nerd games.
yes. Finance, the world of finance makes you very popular very quickly. You get a huge channel. I just can't. Not only because I don't know about it, but because I would be bored to tears.
Yes, yes, you can do something you love, and it's I mean there's money there too. There's the other side of the coin is like you'll never make money in TTRPGs. I mean maybe 30 years ago or something, but like look, we live in the future. We're broadcasting a television show right now, and it's not, you'd have to like rent studio time and like sign up for public access not very long ago. And now, you're talking with people internationally. It's an incredible time to be doing stuff.
Yeah, it really is. When I was a kid, my dad still had a black and white TV in his room.
Mm. Mm. My dad had a little black and white TV that was like portable. It was like cool. You had to like wrap the antenna in tinfoil, but like he could watch the Mets game while whatever he was doing in the garage. I don't even know,
Does it
pretending
have
to
a
be
little
busy.
handle on top?
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, I was a child, so it probably wasn't as heavy as I remember it, but I think it was like 35, 40 pounds. It was like a 3 inch screen, and it was like, oh man, super dense. Yeah, we're aging ourselves, but that's fine. I ain't gonna
Yeah,
pretend. All right, roll a d20. That was yeah, I enjoyed learning that about you.
that was loud. 14.
14. Wow, we keep getting everyone rolls 14s lately. What is your take on the sandbox versus railroad spectrum?
First, I need you to define what you mean by sandbox because in a video game context and an RPG context, they can be different.
Great. Yes. Yes. And that's often where this conversation ends up. I think that it's important to make that distinction between a sandbox wherein you can approach solutions to problems in a bunch of different ways and get creative with how things are interacting. I think a lot of people conflate that with open world, myself included, where and open world is the part of sandbox that I really like, where you can just start walking in a direction and adventure will populate. So two different things. You're welcome to address any side of that. And then railroad, again, a lot of people consider any sort of linear adventure a railroad, and it can be kind of. But I think the pejorative, like railroading your players, is forcing them to do the thing the way you envisioned them doing it and not accepting alternative solutions that maybe should have worked just because you didn't come up with them yourself in prep.
I think it has depended. Okay, so for most people, it's going to depend on their proficiency with the system. So if you're a newbie or you're just really, really nervous, start with a railroad. So what I like to do is pick up an adventure, read through the adventure, and run it for the first session as it says. And then after that, read a little bit further ahead and come up with one or two things that are going to be just out of my head randomly at some point during the adventure. So that like you have the linear progression of the railroad, and I have these compartmentalized encounters that I've put off separately that could go in anywhere.
Mm,
And so that's sort of like the stepping stones to get from railroady to more open world. And so I actually really like linear adventures, but I hate linear DMs.
mm, mm.
So like I like being able to have crutches to fall back on, to say, what am I supposed to do at this point? Oh, they're supposed to go to this bar that they already destroyed. And then of course you have to come up with that. But I like knowing what the direction is supposed to be so that I know if I'm following it or if I'm veering off of it. And sometimes that comes with you're going to be able to plan ahead and figure out where they're going to come back in onto the railroad later, or you're going to have to just pull some shit out of your ass because at the last moment, I don't know, a guy comes up and he hires you for something. You don't want to go, huh? Okay, well, he said his family's being murdered. His house is on fire. He's on fire. Whatever.
Now you're on fire. What now you care, right?
This is fine. But I have to say that generally speaking, I prefer when I'm my most relaxed to have no railroad in the slightest. Maybe have a bad guy who did a bad thing, and then people show up, and I would prefer to just improv off of what they do, just riff off of what actions the heroes take. The problem a DM runs into in that case is that it can feel to the DM like there's no destination.
Mm,
And so eventually that can come out with the players as well. Like it can seem like because things respond to you no matter what you do, but nothing happens aside from that, there's no game here. There's no adventure. There's nothing here except whatever I want to do. So I'm going to do the most messed up thing I can possibly think of. So that's the pitfall of running into the no plot line, no rails at all. But if you can have a couple destination points and be ready to throw something at people, I actually really prefer just the sandbox or the open world, as you put it. Apart from those two definitions of sandbox and railroad, there's another kind of sandbox where you're constrained to a certain area, and whatever is going to happen in that area doesn't affect anything outside of it. It's just the sandbox. It's like a fictional world, like a holodeck.
mm,
And that could be fun for players, but for a DM, I think it's really boring because it can't interact with the rest of your story that might be developing somewhere else. It is, however, fun to catch players off guard by saying, I just nuked this entire city that you loved. Yep, that really happened. Because people don't expect it. And in that case, a sandbox that doesn't affect the outside world can be very impactful for players. I guess at this point it might seem I'm rambling because I'm hitting every topic, but I guess for my preference, to get back to what you originally asked, is to have open world on my own and have a like I know this sounds weird, but a couple yards of track down the line somewhere.
yes. Yeah, just like I keep trying to come up with like it's like a sandbox full of ramps, like just like a bunch of short rails that you can transfer off of.
Now I'm picturing kids playing in sand and just like flying off of skateboarding ramps.
Wear your pads, kids. Um, yeah, rambling is kind of the point of the show, so never apologize for that. Give me another d20. Let's explore some other topic.
5.
Five. What's your favorite world building detail?
Oh, that's right. You asked Jim this, and he like asked you what you mean this way or this way, and you're like, yes, everything. So I'm not even gonna ask you.
That's always going to be the answer. Yeah, I'll give you four answers and you can choose. That's my strategy.
My favorite world building detail, and this is not a very exciting one, but it's where the magic comes from. I
Mm,
like knowing the source of the magic, the flavor of the magic. Like in Forgotten Realms, it's Mistra. It comes from Mistra. Does it really? If you look back in the novels, the weave existed before the current Mistra, and there have been a series of Mistras. So, what point was Mistra the Weave, and is Mistra the Weave currently? And I like that some writers and some novels have explored the different flavors of magic within the weave, and then there's the shadow weave. And I know I'm talking about D&D, but that's my history. That's what most of us were raised with.
mhm,
So I like understanding not just how the magic works, but why, because of the source. Like in Forgotten Realms, if you're doing something with magic that Mister doesn't like, you're shut off. So I like that there's that reason behind it. It's a living person. You have to build a relationship with the source of magic.
Yeah, and that so often goes unexplored. And they were flirting with more differentiation, it felt, with like sources in the UA of like this is primal, this is divine, this is arcane, and it's like different roots. And I don't think there was much talk of the weave in there. And in fact, I think it kind of just gets lip service in most of fifth edition
Yeah.
anyway. Like, yeah, I'm trying to think now. I don't think there is much explanation, right? Because players just
Well,
make number big. That's why. But
monkey brain like big number. No, but it still exists in patrons because patrons have their own reason. Patrons have their own source. Patrons have their own flavor of magic, and
mm,
patrons exist in Pathfinder 2 as well. But let's say that you have a patron that is all about hatred, resenting people, vengeance. Well, the source of magic then in that case is a cult. That's the sphere type of magic if you want, because in Pathfinder there's arcane, occult, divine, and primal. And so occult is just mysterious forces of some sort, or like archaic hexes or curses. But because you have that flavor already, it still gets filtered through your patron. So it's not just a cult of psychism and the great unknown. It's psychism and the great unknown to hurt people painfully.
mhm.
So I like that there's like an extra layer of flavor when you build a character with a patron. That's one of the reasons I think that I like Witch in Pathfinder so much. I've made a lot of Witch videos and Witch builds because not just because the class is versatile, but because there's more intensity to them, more depth, more intricacy.
It's great. You have that extra layer. You have a relationship. I mean, you have the familiar with you who is, kind of like the sort is your spell book is an animal, like that is your connection to all of this. And right off the jump, that's it more dynamic and interesting than I don't know. Like I magic because granddad had relationships with the dragon.
Yeah. The sorcerers I have an issue with in Pathfinder as well. Not like I dislike them or that they're made badly. It's that I don't really relate. It's hard to relate to somebody who just like wakes up one day and they have fireballs.
Mhm.
I mean, because we don't live that life. We don't wake up and suddenly I'm a genius with electrical wiring. No, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think I do. I'm a big fan again, especially in Pathfinder of the customizability of things because I think different people are searching for different things. Like some people want big number good, disparaging, but like I'm that guy half the time too, so it takes one to know one. Some people want the power fantasy some of the time, if not all of the time, but there's a lot of aspects of the human condition, not to put it too grandiosely, to explore with character creation. And I think, I mean, D&D is great for that. Pathfinder is maybe better because there's more options. You can, I mean, literally there are more classes, but you can also fine tune it more.
Well, yeah, in any game system, it's up to imagination. So ultimately, you have the same number, like the same exact number and the same amount of options. But in Pathfinder, there's also like charts and tables you can use to leap off of and to inspire you, or you can go directly from there. So it's not like one system has more options than another because ultimately it's a human running it and you have creativity. But Pathfinder has more of a safety net of saying, okay, well, but you can choose any of these 55 backgrounds to start with. It's just it's a lot easier for somebody who likes reading and researching and making the character.
Yeah. And they do have, I forget the term now off the top of my head. They like it's almost like a pre-gen, but it's like here's a bomber alchemist. Like make
Yeah,
these if you make these choices, boom, 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 and you don't have to go do all the research if that's not your bag. If it
kits.
is, then
They
you're
call
gonna
them
love it.
kits.
But if it's not, you don't have to do that. They give you I want to say archetype, but that's something else. I forget what there's a term for it.
They call them
Um,
kits.
hits. Thank you. Yes. Yes. So you can just grab and go, especially, I don't know, your character just died, you need a new one. Or
Yeah.
you're doing a one shot and you didn't have time to prep because life happened. Yeah, and those Those are great to have. Those are great to have.
Forgive my ignorance, but doesn't 5e have those too? The example character builds with equipment and shit?
There's like pre-gens. I feel like I always recommend them to people, especially I talk to a lot of new players. I bring a lot of people in, and I find there's like a hesitancy to use them. I just want to make a character because that's cool. But especially if you're not familiar with the system, I don't think that's where you should start.
Yeah.
Like the idea that like you'll learn a lot, sure, but you'll also be bored and tired 3 hours later when your character's built, and now it's time to start playing the game. Like throw people into the deep end. Here's a character, play the game, understand what half of this stuff means before you're trying to do the math about it.
Yeah.
That's my philosophy. But yeah, there's pre-gens on the WotC website and stuff. I don't think they do a lot of recommendations again because I do think Pathfinder has more options and more versatility, or let's say more options worth taking to be too disparaging
Oh,
on.
I see your point. No, sometimes it's just that like somebody, okay, if you have a warlock in your party, you're not going to shine unless you choose the right class. That
Yes,
kind of thing. There are
yes,
some that are just more functionally effective in most adventures, and mostly that's because of combat.
yes, yes. And there's I think, and again, I have more experience maybe with fifth edition than Pathfinder 2, but there will Pif 2. There's fewer traps, right? There's like
Hmm.
ways to optimize. With more options come more ways to optimize the system, but there's fewer like I don't know. It feels tighter, even
Yeah,
though
there's
there's more
fewer
to it.
gotchas.
Yeah.
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but it's okay.
Yeah, but
Um,
there's so many like interesting things in 5e where it's like, oh, I would like to take this feat. But like I'm never gonna use chef or cook, whatever that like I need to take sharpshooter because otherwise I'm just worse. Uh
but chef lets you make treats.
yeah, exactly. We'll get maybe we'll roll a chef later. All right, give me another D20. How are we yeah, we're doing all right. We're doing all right on time.
11.
11. Um, Potentially controversial. What do you think the most common player or game master mistake is?
Trusting that your players will choose the right thing.
And say more about that. That's interesting. I just filled in a lot of blanks, but I want you.
In there are a variety of ways I can think of that, but over and over again, it comes back to build your adventure as though there were no players. Your players tend to make choices that seem to make sense to the player, not the character. And when you're making an adventure, you're building a world based on characters. But most players aren't their characters. Some people can get into the heads of their characters really fast and really deeply, and that's great. But it's by far less common. And so don't expect the characters to see that there's an explosion in that direction and actually go in that direction. It's just not going to happen most of the time. I mean, maybe they will because they think, oh, he wants us to. All right. But then you're also doing yourself a disservice because you're forcing them out of the reality of that situation and telling them, guys, please do this. Please just do it. And so, in a way, you're taking away their agency
Hmm.
because you're not addressing what they might actually be interested in. And for that matter, it's also important to get to know your players beforehand. Like, have interviews. I had an interview with everyone in my Discord who was interested before I put together my live stream group. It's important to make a list of like, first off, here's the things you never do. Anybody, I don't care, don't do them. Like, like hurt each other. Like my number one rule is don't be a dick. If you're a dick, you're not coming.
Yeah, good rule.
Thanks.
You'd be surprised. You would think you wouldn't have to say that.
It really
Here
just
we
gives you a premise of saying out. No, you're being a dick. Out.
yeah.
And so the interviews are important to get to know what kind of a person they're going to be. And I had at least two interviews that I can clearly remember where they were extremely tight-lipped, insecure, and didn't respond much when I said anything. They also had no facial expressions. They had no change in pitch or tone when I asked anything or when they said anything. I'm not interested in those people because they don't seem to give a fuck.
Yeah.
So I guess don't assume anything about your players. Get to know them.
Especially in a stream environment's pretty different too. There's a whole secondary bunch of qualifications or considerations, let's say, to if we're broadcasting a thing, if we're like, this is a thing I want people to watch and enjoy.
Sure.
Um, yeah, there is, and I find it online with strangers, maybe because they're the most likely to travel from table to table looking for a game. But there's a certain attitude, and it's not very widespread, but there's a certain attitude of like, impress me, entertain me. It's like there's five people here. You are one-fifth of the fun generation team. Like, if you're not having a good time, what did you do? Like, there's so many players out there complaining about, oh, my DM didn't do what I wanted them to do. It's like, I mean, one, did you communicate
Right.
beforehand, or whatever at a above the board table, above the table level? Like, did you guys talk about it? No. Did they know that you wanted? I don't know, a squirrel pet? No. Oh, then, but you're mad they didn't give you one? Oh, okay. But also, like, what did you do? Like, players, you actually have way more control than you think you do, depending on the dungeon master. Like, and with power comes responsibility, eh? You can drive some of the action, drive some of the story, drive some of the fun, contribute. And yeah, I do get put off by there's some people who are not interested in doing any of that.
Yeah. And if somebody has the attitude of dance monkey, well,
Yeah.
I'm not interested in interacting with them. Even if it's not just a matter of they're not contributing, they're actively detracting because now I don't give a shit about them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's very strange to me. Maybe because I'm a people pleaser or been a game master for too long. I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting. I want to go back to your answer a little bit of like assuming you know what the players are going to do gets you into trouble pretty quickly. And I think that's a lot of people's um stumbling block when first running the game because you grab a book and I mean one, the book's 200 pages and you're you're lucky if you get through the first 30, but also this book assumes that your players are going to act heroically. And especially if they're first time players or it's a bell curve on the opposite side where they've gone through a million adventures. The idea of being set loose in a world without limits or consequences can unleash some chaotic impulses, and maybe they're not going to operate in a lawful good way.
Yeah.
And they're just going to gravitate towards whatever seems the most fun at the time. And that's okay. But yeah, not anticipating that can get you into real trouble real quick. Yeah.
I want to make a counterpoint here that I don't think that it's because the players are trying to destroy anything or derail something. I think it's a natural reaction to, in first and second edition, the DM being a monstrous overlord
Oh,
and punishing you with ridiculous things if you didn't do exactly what they wanted. Like so many times in a game that I played, the DM would hit us with things, physical obstacles in character if we didn't do what he wanted. And one time it was the paladin in our group who was a dick. He never should have been a paladin. He was wandering in the direction that he should not be going. A snowstorm started. He didn't listen. It got colder and started pelting him with snow and he took damage. He didn't listen. So a giant freaking snowball with the word schmuck on it smacked him in the face. So stuff like that, it's kind of a natural response to be like, well, I don't want to do what you want to do. I want to do what I want to do. And people haven't yet come back to center. Let's come back to center and be cooperative with each other.
yeah. There's antagonistic tendencies on both sides in some people and places. Um, yeah, I think if you haven't, in any aspect of life, really, if you haven't like re-examined your habits and preferences from the time you were 12 years old, maybe it's time to do a little unpacking there. Uh,
Maybe some group therapy.
yeah. And I mean, alternatively, if you are still like acting out defensively because of trauma is a strong word for something that happened at a D&D table, but like if you I've had players who were clearly traumatized by someone else before they showed up in my game. And they're like, what do you want me to do? It's like,
Yeah.
you can do like I try to be pretty upfront about the tone that I'm running out because I'll do different things, but like this is a sandbox. You can go anywhere. Like I'm gonna put plot hooks in front of you. If you don't take them, there's other stuff. If you go exploring, kick over a rock, adventure happens. But if you don't engage with anything, like you can get lost in here because there's a million ways to go. And they're like, well, just tell me what to do. Because I'm like, I'm not gonna smoke your character if you don't. I mean, I do like schmuck written on a snowball. That got me. Um, uh, but yeah, but again, and something that was resolved in game instead of over the table, like human to human communication. Like, hey man, if you go that way, it's gonna be a lot less fun for everybody because you're splitting the party and they don't have anything prepped over there, and I can wing it if you want. But the thing I spent time and money preparing for you tonight might be more interesting for everyone. Like that's a thing you can say.
Yeah, that's
I
the biggest benefit anybody can get in order to be a better GM. Take a course in interpersonal communication. It matters a lot
Yeah.
because it teaches you that other people have expectations and your expectations aren't necessarily reality.
Yeah, and it's so even if you think you're good at that, it's so easy to assume you're all on the same page. Um, yeah, because like I don't know, sometimes people have a bad day or a busy day, right? Like sometimes your most theatrical friend shows up and they're like, work sucked today. Like I just want to eat popcorn and kill goblins, and like that's cool sometimes. Or you know, vice versa. If you're at a table with a bunch of like strategic wargaming types, maybe someone wants to spread their wings sometimes, you know? Cuts both ways. So just talk about it. Talk about it. That's true. And again, true for life. Very philosophical one. I'm enjoying
Agreed.
it. Uh, one more roll. Let's roll the dice. See what we get.
8.
8. Um, okay. We've been hanging out on the low end. Piece of advice. New dungeon masters should hear, but rarely do.
Just one?
What's up?
I said, God, just one?
Just well, I mean, again, I will take. You wanted essay questions, man. You can give me. You don't need to start with a thesis statement. You can just give me your paragraphs, and we'll figure it. We'll come to a. We'll form a conclusion together.
All right, cool. A piece of advice that DMs don't usually hear.
Yeah, there's a lot of dungeon master advice out there. One of these cards is what advice shouldn't they be hearing? But what should a new
Oh,
DM
okay.
hear going into it that people don't talk about as much as they should?
You don't have to prepare as much as you think you do, and the preparations that you do make won't all be used. So
Yeah.
just chill.
So just chill. Yeah, because it seems real big and scary. So you over prepare and and that can lead to railroading and throwing a schmuck avalanche at somebody who didn't do what you prepped.
And along with that, I guess also comes trust yourself. You can improv because at some point you're gonna have to just let it go. Let go of your plans, let go of your high expectations, and just relax. Relaxing will help you think better and perform better and have more fun. And then everybody else will have more fun.
Yeah, that's huge. And that doesn't the dungeon master, the game master's fun is rarely prioritized or acknowledged. But if I'm having a good time, my players are having a good time. I mean, in part because I'm not a, vindictive sadist or a 12-year-old. But yeah, the game master is also a player. And if you're happy and having fun, then you're like looser, you're more adaptable. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's something that I could internalize more. Like I could definitely practice being like chiller at the start of the session, especially. I'm always like, this okay, let's hit the ground running. Um, yeah, it's not, it's a game. It's a game of make believe. We're pretending here. So many of us definitely like overinflated, especially at first, because it looks hard. Because there's a lot, it's a lot, but it's not as hard as it looks. If you've never run a game, go run a game, especially if you've been playing games for a long time, because you get such a broader perspective of the whole system and the interpersonal interplay of it all. But yeah, chill out. It's fine, guys. It's a game. Good
And a
hands.
lot of it can be just stage fright. And you have to recognize that at the beginning of the session, you're going to be nervous. Everybody is nervous. It's natural. Even public speakers get nervous about public speaking. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All those people on your screen, they felt nervous when they probably still do. Like, yeah, that's not a reason to stop.
I feel nervous when I'm recording sometimes and nobody else is here except my girlfriend. And I'm like, hi, this is what the hell was
Yeah.
I gonna say? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I was just editing a video last night. At the beginning, I said, "Hi, my name's Loot," and that's my freaking cat. I don't even know why I said that.
I love that. No, hold on. We need to workshop this. I think you might have something there. I am Loot. uh, all right, let's remind the folks at home that your name is in fact Jake,
Yeah,
not not Loot. If you go watch Jake, you will see Loot. Loot will
yeah.
make sure of it.
I
We
have a
good.
bag of treats next to me, and he's never let me forget it.
Okay, I see. Maybe that's how I could get my little dog more involved because she's like, I will not dance for you. I will not get you more likes and subscribes. I am going to sit in my bed. Leave me alone. Um, so over on Wisdom Check, what's on deck? What's coming up next over there on the YouTubes or in the store? We
Oh,
didn't even talk about the store. Go like show me you're making jewelry, you're making rings, you're making dice, you're making all sorts of
oh, yeah. I don't know if you can see this well. It's an
yeah.
eye,
That's
dragon eye.
cool.
So store mix those at wisdomcheckcreations.com, and the Etsy store is just Wisdom Check. Yeah, just Wisdom Check. She's nodding her head while she's making another one of these.
Links below. No one types stuff anymore. Go click the buttons down in the
Good
description.
point. Nobody types stuff anymore. Very valid. And she calls these her omegas. I love that they just move on their own and are pretty to look at. They're different colored ones, of course, and there's different styles of dice. Like, I don't think you can see these very well on camera, but they also scintillate.
Yeah, that's cool. I do like the legibility of like the font choice and the contrast. As someone
Yeah.
who's like, well, I said this before we started. Like I used to be a minimalist and I still have minimalist tendencies, but like I recently popped the cork and became like a total dice goblin. And I got a bunch of pretty dice that I will never use because every time I roll it, it's like, oh shit, what does that say? So like legibility,
I'm the
functionality,
same way.
form
When
and
she hands
function.
me when she hands me dice that doesn't like I can't see it, that's too blurry for me, I'm like, no, just take it back, ink it, or make something do something else with it. I can't use it. And I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Function.
No, no, no. I mean, yeah, yeah. Go check out the store because quality control. You're talking to someone who rolls these dice.
And oh,
um,
what do we have coming up? All right, so lots of collabs apparently, but the one that I'm most interested about for our Pathfinder 2 players is Mark Seifter is going to be on the channel helping me figure out how to teach people to make homebrew that is more balanced
mm,
and converting things into Pathfinder 2 or coming up with them without damaging the structure of the system. Because it's so well balanced, you can easily put something into it or homebrew something that makes everything else unbalanced, and then you have to tip the scale the other way, and then it's not quite right, so you have to go back the other way. And it makes a lot more work for you. So maybe if you have clear guidelines, it's easier to have fun making your own stuff.
nice. I am looking forward to that because it is I'm not a car guy, but it's like a sports car, right? You're afraid like if I put the wrong octane into this, I'm gonna strip the gears. I don't again, not a car guy, but I drive one. But yeah, I'm afraid to tinker with the system much. I did a lot like
Yeah.
on the story side of things, but like kind of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I'm looking forward to that. And if anyone's gonna have some great advice, it's Mark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, if you don't know Mark, check him out too.
That guy knows his math.
Yeah, because he wrote it. So yeah,
Yeah, he was
seems we're
on
looking.
a. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna close this out. So what do you got?
Oh, just he was on a Kraken Week video. I think it was Delver, and he was talking about how to have underwater combat. And he's like, "Yeah, just use the Pythagorean theorem." And I'm like, "Why? What?" I remember that it exists from college or high school, but that would not be my go-to. So yeah, this is the math guy. And
Yeah.
aside from that, on the channel, I'm also having a psychotic fairy build that I already made. I'm just having to write the script for the video. He's essentially a good character that's a serial killer. So think Dexter with wings.
Oh, okay. You have my attention.
And of course, Tian Shaw and Player Core 2 are both coming out, and I'll be reading a lot of those on camera too.
Awesome. Awesome. Go check out the channel. Links below. I don't expect you to type it out, but it is wisdom check. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, spending the time, answering the tough questions, bringing loot along. I would give you a treat if I could. Um, I appreciate everybody watching this. If you enjoyed this, stay tuned because we're going to sit down with the Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation next. Until then, be kind, have fun, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye bye.